John, this is a lot harder than what we thought.
This is a lot harder. We thought, oh, vlogging is going to be so easy. We make a few videos and then just post them.
It takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
a lot more than what we probably allotted for.
Not only do you have to take the videos, you got to have time to upload them, put them in the computer, splice them together. Shannon's doing all that. I'm not doing anything but complaining. Oh yeah, and we lost a bunch of videos.
Yes, we did.
Like a bunch of videos. So
we don't know where they went.
Yeah. So we thought we put them on the computer, then we can't find them. So anyway, literally we lost about a week of videos.
We left you in Custer and we were making our way to Wyoming.
Yeah. So we got out of Wyoming and our first stop was Devil's Tower, which was Devil's Tower National Monument. It was really amazing.
It was, and you'll see in the video that we have a couple shots of some trees where there looks to be just fabric or handkerchiefs tied, and apparently they are prayer cloths and prayer bundles and prayer knots that were tied all along some of the trees that lead up to Devil's Tower.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, Devil's Tower is a Native American holy area, so it's sacred ground. So Native Americans come and do their spiritual worship there, and visitors are asked not to touch or disturb anything that they see along the trail. Anyway, it was a fascinating hike. We walked around the base. Wasn't that far, but it was a pretty hike.
About 2.5 miles.
Yeah, maybe 2.5 miles, and very pleasant. The temperature was nice. It was a good hike.
Along the path up to Devil's Tower, there's prayer bundles and prayer cloths.
Our next stop was Sheridan, Wyoming. So we left Devil's Tower and drove essentially straight to Sheridan. It wasn't that far. And Sheridan was a really nice town. We were surprised. It had that old West town feel to it with a real, I don't know if it was the main street, but the center of town. You had a lot of shops and Western stores. We visited the King's Saddlery Museum, and that was amazing. I don't know how many saddles they had there from all periods of the West, but
tons.
I think it was, gosh, we should know the name of Mr. King, but a famous saddle maker himself who had copied many kinds of styles from the West, and then he became super famous. In fact, most of the saddles that he made weren't even ridden. They were saved as works of art, and just beautiful.
It was amazing.
The museum was just chock full of everything from, I don't know,
all kinds of
firearms,
Western paraphernalia
of every variety. And on that same street, we stopped by the Mint Bar, which was one of the historic watering holes there. I think most of the bar was original. It had been redone, and some bit of trivia was we think, so the barmaid told us, that the woman who wrote Brokeback Mountain
wrote it from inside the bar.
Wrote it from that bar. We don't know if that's true or not, but
that's what she said.
That's what she said.
Yes.
And then we went to the Trail Inn historic home site in Sheridan, which was a real show place.
Yes,
it was built by the Kendricks in 1908, and he was governor of Wyoming and then multiple term senator of Wyoming, and really an amazing home. And
wasn't it 3 stories?
3 stories, and well preserved, and the community interest in the place was amazing, and that so many pieces of furniture had been brought back to the home.
We have found that. There are several other places that we have visited that were historic home sites, and the one commonality that I'm noticing is that at some point when the people who own the home is passed down from generation to generation, eventually no one wants it. So they have a big auction, and they auction off all the furniture, and when they decide to turn it into a historic site, people bring the furniture
Yeah,
back.
it's really amazing. They go to
And
an
it's
auction
really
and
neat.
they buy it and then
Yeah.
bring it back.
And bring it back.
Now, some of the museums we've been to, mind you, have been Grandma's attic.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like every.
But that was cool,
but
too.
that's cool too. I
Yeah.
mean, the history of the West is relatively short, so it's not inconceivable that Grandma's attic contains a lot of different stuff from the late 1800s or early 1900s, which is of historic value. So the Trail End Historic Site, recommend it. Looks like that.
We have some video.
We have some video,
or at
I
least
think,
a couple
of it.
pictures.
Yeah, and also in Sheridan is where the shower broke.
Yes, we left off in Custer talking about the shower being broken.
The shower was broken.
But John is the man. He fixed it.
I don't know about that, but I was able to replace the shower cartridge, which is good. So the
Yes.
shower had gotten really cranky and wasn't working very well, and then it finally just stopped working. So we're like, uh-oh, calling a bunch of RV places. Of course, nobody wants to give you the time of day. Everybody's booked up 50 months in advance. So a little internet research and some other calls, and
He fixed it.
I finally found
Fixed
one.
it. We did a happy dance.
And there was only one in the entire
One.
city of Sheridan.
Yes.
Literally went to 3 different
One carpet.
places and found one. So we fixed it with that, speedy, quick, and that improved the quality of life immeasurably.
Absolutely.
All right, our next stop after Sheridan, we headed toward Billings, Montana. Now, the drive wasn't that long. We'd planned a couple 100 miles for all our legs, which really took about 5 or 6 hours every time we're on the road, just because we like to go slow and stop and look around. And on the way to Billings, we passed through Hardin, Montana. And that was one of the nicest county historical museums. I'd been there
You've been there
before.
before,
I'd been
yeah.
there before, actually, a couple of years ago, and spent some time there. They recreated a small town at the turn of the century. And again, Grandma had donated a lot of stuff, and many of the buildings were actually moved to that site from elsewhere, historic points somewhere in Montana. And they did a really great job. We spent a pretty good bit of time there. And the weather was nice, although it felt like it was super hot. There's some boardwalks there. I remember walking. Now it seems like an ancient memory because this was literally more than a week ago.
It was more than a week ago.
And we're sitting here in Glacier doing this video, trying to catch up for the weeks that we missed. So
That's where we bought the bear claw.
oh yeah. Shannon
Hattie.
bought a bear claw for Hattie at the gift store there.
Yes, because every girl needs a bear claw
Every
necklace.
girl. So now Hattie's got one. And then before we got to Billings, we stopped at Pompey's Pillar, which is a historic site, Lewis and Clark expedition site.
Yes, got a picture of Clark's
the
signature.
The only place where there's physical evidence of the expedition as they pass through. Really, really impressive. And a nice walk around the base, and there's scaffolding going up to Pompey's Pillar. I'd been there also, and you know, it was nice. It was nice to go back and share that with Shannon. And then we got to Billings, and Billings wasn't as, I don't know.
It was spread out.
It was really spread out. Now, it was a nice town. It's the largest town in Montana, which
Had
also
the rim,
surprises.
That was really pretty.
Yeah, it had
on
a
the
rim and
at the top,
up by the
overlooked the city.
airport. Look, you know, it was nice, but it was spread out. There was no sense of this
No
is a
historic
western
downtown.
town. No,
That was where they had Montana Street.
yeah,
Billings had Montana
Street. But there was no center where the old city was.
Right.
It had all just been torn down and renovated, revitalized. So Billings, in terms of an old west town, wasn't that great. However, we did go to the Western Heritage Center. In fact, while we were looking around for things to do in Billings, we're like, well, where's Billings?
Yeah.
And we did go to the Western Heritage Center,
Which happened to be on Montana Avenue.
which
not
happened to
street,
be
but-
on Montana Avenue, and we didn't actually see a lot of their exhibit because it wasn't very large, but they had a really interesting Native American exhibit of history of Native Americans.
The best I think we've seen so far.
Yeah, definitely the best. And
Heartbreaking,
we were fortunate that the executive director, Kevin Kustra, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Kevin, anyway, probably talked with us for an hour about his experience in Montana and the museum and the curated exhibits and American Indian, Native American history. Really, that was.
He was the one that had done a lot of research and
Yeah.
put the exhibit
Well,
together.
edited the exhibit. You know,
Yeah.
his staff had done
Yeah.
the exhibit. This Native American, really chronicling the hardships of the Native Americans, and it was heartbreaking. It really was, and super fascinating talk. That was the highlight for me. That was the highlight of Billings.
Stay at Billings.
Yeah, and from Billings, let's see, is that where you noticed that there was a leak in the freshwater tank?
Not yet.
All right, so from Billings, we went on to White Sulphur Springs. Now, White Sulphur
Yes.
Springs was intended just to be a waypoint, halfway between Billings and Missoula. So we're thinking, okay, it's a couple of 100 miles. Let's make it it was actually a pretty nice little town.
Yes, it's been one of my favorite.
Well, I didn't rank as one of my favorites.
And
but
I mean, I think because there's not a whole lot to do there, I'm not even sure there was a stop sign or a stoplight in the entire town. But the people were so friendly and so kind. We found a rockin' gym there
Yeah.
that we visited several times, and the girls that worked at the gym were helpful, and just the people. The two sisters, twin sisters boutique we went to, just everyone just made you feel at home.
Yeah, it was nice.
I liked it.
It had a good feel.
It did.
Super small town.
Yeah.
Of course, we went
900 people.
Yeah, and we went to the hot
Yeah.
springs, which was
Yes.
kind of interesting because there's a motel in town, and they purchased the hot springs, the access to the hot springs. So they had 3 pools, 2 outdoor and 1 indoor, and for $10 a person, you could get a towel and go back and sit. It was
Like one pool was 97 degrees, one was 102,
And
and
one
one
was
was like
104.
104 or 105.
yeah. No, it was nice.
Yeah.
Definitely worth doing. Natural hot springs, the sort of smell of sulfur, but really interesting. Yeah, and a rockin' gym. It was
Amazing gym.
like there's nothing in this town.
Yeah.
And there's this motel, and there are a few other buildings. I think there was a gas station, maybe 2. And then the 2 old historic homes at the end of the street.
which we loved. Which we found out were just purchased.
One was the Ringling.
2 Sarahs.
Yeah, 2 Sarahs. One was
The Ringling brothers.
Ringling Brothers of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus fame. One was one of their, I think, offspring's home, and then the other one across the street, equally beautiful and brick. But those were definitely the most significant buildings in the town. Wait, did we go to another historic home in White Sulphur?
We did.
Yeah.
We went to the Castle Museum.
Yeah, the Castle Museum.
Which overlooked the entire city, just very similar to the last one that we went to, the Trail Inns.
I can't remember who owned the castle.
Mr. Castle?
No, it wasn't Mr.
Yes,
Castle.
it was. His last name was Castle.
I don't believe it. Don't believe that. It's not Castle. Really?
It was Castle. It was Castle.
Anyway, that's the museum, a restored Victorian home. though familiarly known as the castle. The house was built by Mr. Sherman.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
Mr. Sherman.
Mr. Sherman. Anyway, really nice. That was another example of Grandma and her things.
Yes.
I don't think there was really anything original in the house.
No.
Not really.
But it was still neat, and they had electricity back then, which was kind of, well, not kind of, was absolutely unusual. And basically, the story was he built this home, Mr. Sherman did, on the top of this. It wasn't really a mountain, but it was definitely one of the largest hills.
It was overlooking the town.
Yeah, overlooking.
I mean, this guy's
a
stockman and a mine owner, and you imagine in 1892 there was nothing there, and there were some pictures showing what his view
of White Sulphur Springs.
And there was nothing. And they say he built it there to
look down on the city.
Look down on his neighbors, one of whom was a prominent physician, evidently, and there was some enmity there.
Yeah.
But anyway,
amazing use.
So anyway, built in 1892 and sold in 1905, and lovingly restored and taken care of by the small community of local people who have donated, again, furnishings and photographs to give you a sense of what turn of the century White Sulphur Springs was like. And a lot of these small towns that really are nothing today were something back in the mining days, you know, turn of the century when gold or silver was discovered out here. These were thriving communities. Definitely not so much now. But White Sulphur Springs, not on my map of places that I'd love to stay.
I would definitely go back to visit.
Yeah, I'd go back to visit, and the gym was rocking.
Yes.
It was like shockingly nice. So clearly and it was a ranch-owning person. Can't remember the name of the ranch, but anyway, ranch-owning young people, I'm guessing, built that gym because they wanted a great gym. And it included a spa and a nail place.
We were blown away.
Yeah, I mean, particularly for that. Not to go on and on and on. It was a nice gym, but really nice for that area when there is nothing there but a one single street and a gas station.
And friendly people.
Friendly people.
Absolutely.
So White Sulphur Springs.
Would definitely go back.
Go back. Go there. Let me do it. This is the home built by B.R. Sherman, a stockman and mine owner in 1892 in White Sulphur Springs, Montana. It overlooks the entire city, which in 1892 probably wasn't much then either. It does have a beautiful view of the Big Belt Mountain Range.
While we were in White Sulphur Springs, I was sitting outside on the picnic table, and I was talking to my Aunt Evie Pearl. Hi, Evie. And I noticed this drip coming from the wheel well. Is that what you call it?
Yeah,
the wheel well.
The right side wheel well.
Yeah, of the RV. And I thought, I'm not sure if that's supposed to be there or not. So I got John, I'm like, come out here and look at this. We have something dripping. I was kind of hoping it was the air conditioner, but we didn't have the air going.
But the air condition actually vents on
the other side,
left side.
Yeah, so we noticed a drip.
Yeah, so that's not good. Anytime you see water leaking from your RV, you're thinking that's probably a bad thing. But in this case, it wasn't a bad thing. Okay, so we panicked.
It wasn't a great thing.
It wasn't a great thing, though. It was, we panicked a little bit and said, okay, we got to shut everything off. It looked like it was the city water. So when we were pressurized with city water, it seemed to leak.
So we had a great shower experience, and then all of a sudden
and
we
then
had
it was
a leak
like,
again.
yeah, exactly, just a touch of goodness, and then back to
no shower.
No shower. So we disconnected city water, it seemed like, and it was fine. So it wasn't leaking on the pump. Oh yeah, but then the hot water heater stopped working.
Yes.
So we didn't have hot water, and we were afraid to use city water. So that that sparked a lot of calls to RV places. Okay,
Yes.
so calling RV dealers, both of the ones in Billings, Missoula, the Airstream places, of course, again, they're booked for now to the eternity, and they're never going to have time to even give you a technical guy on the phone to ask what's going on. But they did recommend another RV place in Missoula. And I called this guy, Tim. He was super nice. And he said, sure, come in the morning. So when we left White Sulphur Springs, we left at
4:45 in the morning. You'll see some great sunrise video and
very
pictures.
early, 4:45 in the morning for whatever, a 3 or so hour drive, 4-hour drive. I think 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We were there by 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, about a little. I think it was a little after 9, but around 9 o'clock we got there, and the guy was super nice. Okay, he didn't know a lot about Airstreams, but it turned out that the heater was something simple. Evidently, we had overdrawn some amps at a campground, and the breaker had been tripped, so that was an easy fix. He didn't have any real idea about why the leak was happening. He supposed that it was backflow from the water pump into the freshwater tank, so we put a one-way check valve in there, and it seemed to it fixed it.
Yeah.
So everything's fixed. The trailer's 100%. So that made Missoula a lot more fun.
Yes.
So we got to Missoula, and
we were hit by a mega heat wave.
Mega heat wave. It was so freaking hot in Missoula.
We are bringing the Mississippi heat with us.
It was
you guys
crazy
take
hot.
it back.
I mean, it'd been hot before, but by the time we got to Missoula,
104, 106, 107-ish. It was so hot.
Yeah, in the car, but it was hitting topping 100 degrees. It was hot.
Over 100.
So we saw a couple of things in Missoula, but it was really kind of the weather stole the show. I went fishing one morning, but it was very brief up on Rock Creek, which was nice, but about an hour drive. But it was fished for about 3 hours. Beautiful area, hard to get to, but pretty. We saw the Daly Mansion, which was just by happenstance.
Right, in Hamilton. Drove down to Hamilton.
Yeah, we drove down to Hamilton, Montana, thinking, well, let's see if we can get out of Missoula and look around. And we came across the Daly Mansion, which was really, really well done. Self-guided tour, but a beautiful home, spectacular. 1889 Victorian home.
With a lot of the original furniture
lots of the original
people
furniture.
had
Spectacular.
bought at an auction and then brought back.
Yeah, it was really amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely worth doing it. And then I guess the highlight of the Missoula was our float down the Clark Fork.
We did. We went tube down the Clark Fork River.
Yeah, but before we tubed, we
them.
actually signed up for the tube on,
Let's say, I think it was Thursday.
Thursday afternoon, and we got down there.
We were going to tube from 6 to 9 at night.
Right,
when it's cooler.
and the wind's blowing, and it's getting really dark, and we're like, okay, it's a suicide mission, we're going to do it. And the tubing people are like, well, okay, it's probably a suicide mission, but that's all right. And then, thank goodness, they put the brakes on and said, okay, in an abundance of caution, we're going to close and not allow anybody else today to go. Thank goodness, because within 15 minutes, torrential downpour, gusts, the Weather Bureau said
drive,
up to 60 miles an hour wind, so there'd been no way in some tubes on the river would we have had a good time. However, the next day we actually did tube it, and it was really calm, perfect weather, and just really relaxed. In about 2.5 hours floating back into the city. That was nice. Missoula was nice. It actually didn't meet my full expectation. I was thinking, hey, college town, heard a lot about Missoula. Spread out city, got a lot of stuff there, everything you need. The topography had that sort of arid, not a lot of trees going on, and but they had everything. It just wasn't my thing. We also visited the Historical Museum, Fort Missoula. That was good. Really, it was an expose of American internment of the Japanese and Italians in World War II, because it had been a prisoner of war and an internment camp, along with its long history as a military outpost. And then they had a recreated settlement around there, turn of the century town, which was good. So that was a historical museum at Fort Missoula. Worth a visit, and definitely a deeper insight into all the crazy stuff that's happened in the United States, particularly during the war years. So that was Missoula. It was awesome, and then we were headed on to Glacier, which...
And we have divided these videos up, so
Yeah.
We'll do separate videos on Glacier.
Right, so finally I think with this we'll catch up to the last few weeks and we can get out of Shannon's panic of, oh my gosh, how am I going to do all these? I think we can put this one to bed soon, and then we'll have another one of just Glacier alone, because we were there for 5 days. All right, see you next time.